You sending me on minimum wage. I ain't no baby. I ain't no teenager. I mean, what is that? If I do get it, I can't even make it.
All I can do is show you what we have.
John Travolta plays a white man who learns what it's like to be a minority in a world dominated by blacks in White Man's Burden, one of 5 new films we'll be reviewing this week on Siskel and Ebert, including new movies starring Jeff Bridges, Ellen Barkin, and Andy Garcia. Also a tribute to the late, great director Louis Malle. I'm Gene Siskel of the Chicago Tribune.
And I'm Roger Ebert of the Chicago Sun-Times. Our first movie is White Man's Burden, and this is a film that starts with a fascinating premise and then unfortunately doesn't explore it as fully as probably it should have. In the movie's fantasy world, the races are reversed in American society. Blacks are the dominant majority and whites are the poorer minority group, often discriminated against. Soon after the movie opens, a poor white, played by John Travolta, has been fired from a factory owned by a black millionaire, played by Harry Belafonte. When he goes to Belafonte's mansion trying to explain himself, he's easily dismissed.
Just tell whoever it is that there's nothing I can do to help him with it.
Are you still there?
Yeah, what'd he say?
He said he's sorry, but he can't help you.
Out of work, Travolta gets no satisfaction at the unemployment agency.
Every week I come in here to the same listings.
Oh, there are a few new jobs up there. You just have to weed through them.
Weed through what? You look at them. There ain't no new jobs there. You find me one decent job that's hanging up there.
Soon his family is evicted, and his wife, Kelly Lynch, and their children move in with her mother, Carrie Snodgrass.
Just leave it. None of it's gonna fit in my place anyway.
I said that I would put it in my truck and find a place for it later.
I'm not having it, and I'm not having you. She is lucky that I am letting them in and can't take care of his own.
In desperation, Travolta kidnaps Belafonte in an extreme measure to try to get a fair hearing. The millionaire tries to deal with this crazed white man.
Do you owe somebody some money? Because what this is about, if you owe someone money, I can give you the money.
You give me the money.
What I found fascinating about White Man's Burden were the opening scenes in which many of our unspoken and unconscious assumptions about race in America were turned topsy-turvy. I would have appreciated it if the movie had stayed on that track, demonstrating through that turning of the tables how so many of our attitudes are color-coded. Unfortunately, after the kidnapping happens, the movie turns into a chase picture. I think that was a miscalculation. This movie might have worked as a social satire, but when it becomes an action film, it's headed in exactly the wrong direction.
I had exactly the same reaction as you. A terrific premise. And shots of also whites standing on the street corner, being hassled by black cops. That's the stuff that works. None of the stuff with the stars. And actually, if you notice, Travolta is sort of playing down his intelligence and using an accent. I don't know what he's trying to play, you know, white trash or white working man, but his accent doesn't work well. He and Belafonte, when they're interchanged, we see it all seems forced to make social points. It is simply imagery that makes us regard
there's
the
an
subject.
idea here for a fabulous movie in which you just point out, by switching the races, it allows it to become visible, which is not always visible before, and just point out how things work. That would have
it would have worked almost as a silent movie without any stars. And I think you're right. I think it can still be done. Okay, next movie. And our next film is a treat. It's called Last Summer in the Hamptons by Henry Jaglom, an independent filmmaker who is getting more accomplished with his every film. His movies are about smart people talking about their problems and pleasures, and as the dialogue of most Hollywood films gets worse, Henry Jaglom's films, I think, get better and better by comparison. In Last Summer in the Hamptons, he takes us to a grand summer house that is about to be sold by its struggling owners, a theatrical family. And so this last weekend is sort of a last hurrah with the grown kids and parents and friends all getting together. Here's the late Vivica Lynn in a wonderful role as the grand-dam grandmother of the family, an actress who complains to a house guest that she'd like to be as accomplished in her real life as she is on stage.
I just want the same high quality.
But nothing seems to stop you. You haven't let anything stop you. You just keep going.
It's because I know. It's because I know. That's what I'm born to do. And if it doesn't happen here...
That's Victoria Foyt in a good role as the house guest. She's a wonderful character, a commercial Hollywood star visiting these more serious actors out east. And she puts the professional make on a renowned theatrical director played by the wonderful director-actor, Andre Gregory.
You're so talented. You make beautiful art.
Have you seen any of my work?
No, but I've heard everything about it. You're like a legend.
Where?
Where are you living?
What I particularly like about this film is that the conversations seem real. For example, this discussion about theater and family.
Hey, Jake. What's the matter with you? You're reading all the time. Don't you see what's going on? I mean, this is great stuff. You should use it. You should write about it, right?
It's always a show with you, isn't it, Grandma? It's always part of the show.
And Last Summer in the Hamptons also has a good sense of humor, like when the Hollywood star tries to get a part in a play written by a grandson, played by John Robin Bates. She's made some changes, some big changes in his script.
You think you can play this character? This
Well, as
character happens
Angela.
to be a man.
I know.
Angelo. It's a man. I wrote a man.
I know, but it's
with
me.
man problems.
No, but
With
these
boy
problems are women's
Do you think
problems.
they have the same problems?
Yes.
Men?
I found watching Last Summer in the Hamptons just like being a weekend house guest at the home of a smart and talented and nicely screwed up family. A weekend full of surprises, good conversations, moments of epiphany, some sadness, and upon reflection, plenty of good memories. I think this may be the best film Henry Jaglom has made.
Well, it's an awfully good film. And you know, Jaglom has been making these films for about 20 years,
Right.
and the rap on his work is he's just shooting home movies. Because frequently he uses his friends, he uses his neighbors.
He's got some talented
He
friends.
uses himself. He does real life. Sometimes it works better than other times. This time it works very well, and it's a compliment to the film that, to me, it felt like a home movie being shot about this reunion of people at this house that's about to be sold. I felt that it had that kind of spontaneity, as if I was really eavesdropping on actual conversations, and that feeling was very nice to
I
have.
thought that I think it's a little bit, you know, what's the rap on real home movies? They run on too long, they're disjointed, they don't have any point. That's a real home movie. This movie juggles a dozen characters and gives them each enough screen time so that we know them. I think it's very accomplished.
This movie is very cleverly written by Jaglom and by Victoria Foyt, and it's very intelligently done, but the feeling has the spontaneity and the eavesdropping feeling of a home movie, and that's what's really terrific.
This is the one of his I've liked the most.
Okay, when we come back, Jeff Bridges examines the last days of a legendary gunfighter in Wild Bill.
Man, it cheats the cards. Ain't got no religion.
Howdy, Jane.
It's not easy being Wild Bill Hickok. He has a reputation all over the West as a deadly gunfighter, and people are always trying to test it. And as the movie Wild Bill opens, Bill is growing older, his eyesight is failing, and time seems to be running out. Jeff Bridges stars as Hickok in the film, and it seems like everyone wants revenge, including Bruce Dern, who turns up in a wheelchair to challenge Bill to a shootout.
What are you hiding? Great Wild Bill Hickok is actually inside hiding?
Needless to say, Bill, all good fortune.
John Hurt plays Bill's sidekick and one of his few friends. Another one of the rare friendly faces in his life belongs to Ellen Barkin as Calamity Jane, a longtime pal and occasional lover who turns up and remembers old times.
Good to see you, Jane. I like seeing old friends.
It's just for old time's sake. You wiping it off?
No, I'm rubbing it in.
Now another challenger appears, a kid played by David Arquette, who claims Hickok dishonored his mother.
I'm gonna give you a chance in life, Jack. I don't want to kill nobody so young and confused about things.
Wild Bill was written and directed by action specialist Walter Hill, whose westerns include Long Riders and the beautifully photographed Geronimo. This time, I think Hill strikes out. The movie is slow and gloomy and foreordained, without much of a story to get us involved, and although Bridges is a fine actor, he isn't given much to work with this time. I was really disappointed.
Oh, I liked it.
You did?
I thought there was real energy. You know, as you were talking about it, I was recalling just the upbeat attitude I felt. Upbeat attitude of the actors for their roles. Clearly, Ellen Barkin is an enthusiastic Calamity Jane. And also, I realize this is the end of his life, but there is gusto in the way he plays this man who knows his life is over.
I think there's a lot of exhaustion in the way he plays, especially in that long last scene where they're all sitting around the bar room talking about all the ramifications of what may or may not happen.
It is the last scene, and he senses it. I mean, all of these gunslingers had to know that the end was near. If they lived a long time, which few of them did, it was a shock to them, I'm sure.
Now, let me get this straight. You think people should see Wild Bill but not Casino?
Well, I am telling you that I think that Wild Bill is a better Western, okay, than I think Casino is.
But you're recommending Wild Bill, and you didn't recommend Casino.
Yeah, and every time now for the next year that I give a positive review, you can ask me the same question, and you'll still get the same answer.
Well, that's fair enough. Coming up, the talented Jason Patric stars in the story of a runaway slave, The Journey of August King.
You want to follow this creek till you get to the bridge by the inn. That's north.
That's Jason Patric, a fine young actor playing a North Carolina mountain man in The Journey of August King. And at the very beginning of this story, he happens upon a runaway slave girl played by Tandy Newton. There's a search party out for the missing slave, and when they meet up once again, August King decides to hide her at his own peril.
If you won't tell.
There's no need, mister. But you better not let Mama or Papa see her.
That someone is protecting this slave girl is scandalous, and the local lawman, played by Sam Waterston, is reluctant to get involved. He looks kindly upon August King, but powerful forces have been unleashed.
Because people, even this morning, have come through my gate and said laws have been broken, property rights violated.
The film tiptoes around any sexual attraction that might exist between Patrick and Newton, and instead gives us scenes like this about August being a young widower.
I was wrong to put this on, huh?
The whole tone of The Journey of August King is very tentative. I'm not asking for an action picture, but one that engages the principal players a little more. Also, the film has a cartoonish villain who owns the slave. The best that I can say about The Journey of August King is that it looks authentic, North Carolina in 1815. Other than that, however, it's not a compelling story.
I think you picked exactly the right word with tentative. This movie doesn't declare itself. It doesn't seem confident about what it's about, where the dramatic tension lies, what is desired at the end of the film, what the goal is, what the fears are. It's more like kind of
somebody chickened out. Don't you have that feeling they had an idea for a story?
I don't know if they chickened out or if they just started making the movie before they were really finished with the script and really had it down to the point where it was compelling enough.
I mean, here's a subject matter where we're ready for it, and we're ready for some provocative idea, and there really isn't a single one in the whole picture. When we come back, Andy Garcia finds himself returning to a life of crime and Things to Do in Denver When You're Dead.
Our next movie is called Things to Do in Denver When You're Dead, and I really like that title, although I'm not quite sure what it means. The movie stars Andy Garcia and a lot of other recognizable faces in the story of a former gangster who tries to go straight but loses a lot of money in a goofy video business and has to listen when a crime kingpin gives him an order. The bizarre boss is played by Christopher Walken in what is beginning to seem like Walken's weirdo villain of the week.
I'm paying 50 G's straight on. It's just an action. Split it any way you want. I want to throw these pathetic yucks some scratch.
All Garcia has to do is scare a young man that Walken wants kept out of Denver. It should be a simple job, but he recruits a four-man team to help him, and these are, without any doubt, the four screwiest goofballs in Denver. They're played by William Forsythe, Christopher Lloyd, Treat Williams, and Bill Nunn.
Hey, man, nobody told me about this booyah, man. Nobody told me I've been humping with no inky. All right, easy, boys. Settle down.
Lloyd has leprosy, but that's nothing compared to Williams' hair-trigger violent temper. Williams wants to play one of the phony cops in Garcia's scheme.
Damn it, Jimmy, I'm 41 years old and they still call me Critical Bill. You know, I mean, I have really changed, man. How do you think that makes me feel?
Billy, you're beating up on corpses, Bill.
Look, that's the point, Jimmy. That's the thing, man. Doing that with them bodies, I mean, that keeps my powder dry.
Meanwhile, of course, there's a girl, one on whose behalf Garcia would like to be able to go straight. She's played by Gabrielle Anwar.
Are you in love?
What?
At the present time, are you in love?
Why?
Because if you are, then I won't waste your time. I'm really not the type of man to impede another man's happiness. However, if you're not presently in love, then I will continue my rhapsody, because if I may say so, Dagny, you are most definitely the bee's knee.
There is a lot to like in Things to Do in Denver When You're Dead, and that includes the quirky dialogue by Scott Rosenberg and the offbeat direction by Gary Fleeter. Unfortunately, there's a lot of other stuff in the movie, too, that doesn't work as well, including a malt shop that contains Jack Warden as a kind of Greek chorus who comments on everything. The movie is an impressive debut with some smart elements in it, but for me, it kind of got bogged down in its own cleverness.
And therefore, your review is?
Negative.
Me too. We're getting a number of pictures now, I think inspired by probably Quentin Tarantino's Reservoir Dogs, where we have a group of characters, and they're all colorful people on some sort of mission. But you know, I think you have to have the basic elements of, do we care about the people accomplishing what they want to? And frankly, I didn't care at some level.
You know, the Garcia character was interesting, and I would have cared more about this movie if they had been able to take out the extraneous elements and aim it a little bit better.
Well, that's what I'm talking about.
But
right?
about Reservoir Dogs, it's interesting because when I saw this movie at Cannes, I did a little paragraph on it, and I got a letter from Gary Fleeter, the director, saying, no, I wasn't influenced by Tarantino.
He made it earlier?
Rosenberg's script existed long before Tarantino came on the screen. It's as if this kind of stuff is in the air right now.
All right, fine. Whatever it is, I'm telling you, this one doesn't work. Coming up next, A Great Life of Movie Making has ended. A tribute is next. Director Louis Malle died last week in his Beverly Hills home, and many of his obits identified him as the husband of TV's Murphy Brown, Candice Bergen. But Louis Malle was a world-class filmmaker for nearly 40 of his 63 years. He was part of the French New Wave of filmmakers in the 1950s, breaking psychosexual ground with The Lovers, featuring Jean Moreau as a wealthy wife who breaks free of her husband and is orgasmic on screen, shocking for those times. A decade later, he created the even more stunning argument for love, Murmur of the Heart, about a tender, incestuous moment between a mother and her son. In the late 70s, Louis Malle came to the United States, and his mature attitude toward matters sexual and emotional made him a breed apart. Pretty Baby with Brooke Shields was the story of a child prostitute in New Orleans and was shocking in its treatment of a girl as capable of having adult emotions.
I can feel the steam inside me right through my dress.
One of his greatest films was Atlantic City, with its bittersweet look at a faded city and a poignant romance between a dying old crook, Burt Lancaster, and Susan Sarandon as a casino waitress. It was nominated for 5 Oscars.
Teach me stuff.
Like what?
What you know.
Louis Malle made films that honored language, the spoken word, and he did it beautifully with My Dinner with Andre, 2 hours of mystical conversation between Andre Gregory and Wallace Shawn.
Contrary, this incredible emphasis that we all place now on our so-called careers automatically makes perceiving reality a very low priority. Because if your life is organized around trying to be successful in a career, well, it just doesn't matter what you perceive or what you experience.
Louis Malle's accomplishments are noteworthy both for the wide variety of films he made and also for their high moral tone. He always rooted for the underdog, particularly with his films about the French complicity with the Nazis, as in the autobiographical Au revoir les enfants, about the betrayal and murder of a Jewish student who was hiding out at a school, much like the one young Mr. Malle attended. Here's the bottom line on Louis Malle. It is very difficult to think of a filmmaker who created more different kinds of films and one so excellent as Mr. Malle. He was a treasure, and he will be missed. But his legacy lives on in all of the pictures I've cited. They're all available on home video.
He was a wonderful filmmaker. He started out by making an underwater documentary with Jacques Cousteau, and he shot documentaries in India. He was at home everywhere.
Now let's recap the movies we reviewed on this show. 2 thumbs down for White Man's Burden, with John Travolta experiencing what it's like to be a racial minority. A great concept, but not well executed at all. 2 thumbs up for Henry Jaglam's Last Summer in the Hamptons, with its smart portrait of a family of theater people. We split on Wild Bill, Walter Hill's version of the legendary Western hero starring Jeff Bridges. I thought it was exciting. Roger found it to be slow and gloomy. 2 thumbs down for The Journey of August King, about a mountain man sheltering a runaway slave, a film that has good intentions but a very soft, tentative screenplay. And finally, 2 thumbs down for Things to Do in Denver When You're Dead. Roger liked it a little bit more than me. Another cast of crazies on a caper. So Last Summer in the Hamptons, and I still like Wild Bill.
Okay, that's it for this week. Next week, we'll be back with reviews of more new movies, including Harrison Ford as a billionaire whose heart is melted by Julia Ormond in Sabrina. And Father of the Bride Part 2 with Steve Martin and Diane Keaton coping once again with parenthood. That's next week. And until then, the balcony is closed.
VCR alert for Christmas. It's the brand new 1996 edition of Roger Ebert's Video Companion. It comes with a separate pocket video guide. Berkline's new Feather Glide recliner glides easily, swivels through a full circle, and reclines effortlessly with fingertip touch motion. Berkline, the perfect gift of comfort. This holiday season, discover the excitement and intrigue of the world's greatest brain teasers with 30-second mysteries. 30-second mysteries, new from University Games. Stetson Cologne, the great masculine scent that's easy to wear and hard for a woman to resist. Stetson fits.